Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Israel Update. Today, January 27th, is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Now, this obviously means a lot to us as people who support Israel, as people who love Israel. And I think it's something that we have to be aware of is it wasn't that long ago that the Holocaust took place. When you look at the grand scheme of human history, it really wasn't a very long time ago. And the terrifying part is that after the atrocities of the Holocaust, anti-Semitism is at an all-time high right now across the world. You know, I've been reading studies on it, and the data indicates and the literature indicates that Jews are about 300% more likely to suffer an attack of, let's call it racial hatred. Jews are the most likely group to experience this out of every demographic around the world. And that is a terrifying thought and a terrifying reality. Another terrifying thing is that I've been watching, some people go around to university campuses asking people if they know what the Holocaust is. And these are kids that have just gotten into college. Some of them are a couple years in, but so many don't know what it is. And that's in America. And just that thought that so many people of college age don't know what happened to the Jews. They asked them, do you know what it was? Most of them said no. Some of them said, wasn't it something that happened where a couple thousand people died? Other people thought that the Holocaust was a city. And when you think about that, when you think about the fact that 11 million people lost their lives, 6 million of whom were Jews, the targeted hatred of a bigoted totalitarian system. We obviously know, this is why history is so important. This is why the motto, as it were, of the survivors of the Holocaust of modern day Israel is never again and never forget. And I have a tattoo on my arm here in Hebrew that says Yizkor, which means remember. And it's the same word in the Hebrew constantly that God implored the Israelites with. If you read through the book of Deuteronomy, remember, 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 because we as humans have this horrific tendency to forget things. And so for us as supporters of Israel, for those who love the Jewish people, it is so important that we remember. It is so important that we don't forget what happened, what it was that faced the people, and how many people died. Out of the 6 million that died, 1.5 million were children. And I think because we live in a day and age where there's so much technology, we're constantly assaulted by images and videos, and it's easy to sort of access anything horrific that's happened in the world it's really at the tip of our fingers. I think it's easy for us to become numb. It's easy for us to become blunted emotionally to what's taken place. And I try and constantly stay aware of these sorts of things. Behind me are a bunch of books. The shelf above has a whole bunch of Holocaust literature. I bought so many books from Yad Vashem, which is the predominant Holocaust memorial museum in Israel, just so that I'm constantly reminded and that I don't forget, because the potential for me to forget is there the same way it's there for any of us. And I know that so often we're told, don't get overly emotional about things, but I think being moved emotionally by a tragedy like that of the Holocaust is something that we all should feel. We should feel emotionally moved by it. And even though we hear about it a lot, my encouragement to you is if there's a Holocaust museum near you in your city, go to it, support it. Show your standing with the Jewish people by going there. I always do this no matter what city I've visited around the world. If there's a Holocaust memorial or whether it's a memorial park or a museum, I always try and go because it's so important for me to remember. And I've even been thinking about this with my daughter. She's 6.5 now, and I've been thinking about it. And this is something that I'm going to take her to go and show her. Not yet. I'm going to wait a little while until she's a bit older, but I want her to be aware. I feel a responsibility to pass down what's happened, the knowledge at least of what's happened, because I don't want her to be somebody who goes to college and doesn't know what's happened in humanity. And so, as I've been talking, these images have been showing, and it's so easy for us to be desensitized. But my encouragement to you this week is do something, whether it's putting out a post on Facebook, whether it's tweeting about it, putting something up on Instagram, something to show solidarity. Today, Friday, the 27th of January, this is the day where around the world there's an imploring by the Jewish people, by the survivors of the Holocaust, to remember. And so even though today's show has been short, I just wanted to ask that you take a moment and do something to show a sign of solidarity, to stand with the Jewish people. We talk about Israel a lot here. Obviously, this is the channel where we focus on Israel, and it's incredible to see what God has done with this nation from the rebirth miraculously on May the 14th, 1948. And I talk about it often, how that day was the fulfillment of ancient prophecy. Isaiah 66:8 said, "Can a nation be born in a day? No sooner is Zion in labor than she brings forth her sons." And that happened on May the 14th, 1948, where out of the ashes of the Holocaust, this modern day nation was born. And when you look at what the Jews have accomplished, it's nothing short of miraculous. The technology that's come out of this tiny nation, the advances in the medical field and science, literally and basically every single thing you can imagine, the Jews are leading. And that's just evidence of Genesis 12:3 at work, where God says, "I will bless those who bless you. You will be a blessing and a breadbasket to the nations." I'm obviously paraphrasing a few different verses here. But the nation of Israel is a miracle. The Jewish people are a miracle. And my encouragement to you is to allow that to encourage you. That if out of this tragedy, out of this turmoil, out of this army of bones could come an army, this valley of dry bones can turn into an army. Ezekiel 37, was the prophecy of that taking place. And again, the rebirth of the nation of Israel was fulfillment of that, where there was this valley of dry bones and the Spirit of God breathed life into them and they became this vast army. And so my encouragement this week is allow God's track record, his story with the Jews, to encourage you to know he hasn't forgotten you. If you've suffered tragedy, it's not that he doesn't care. He does care. He sees and he knows. And this is something that God cares about every single one of us in detail. And it doesn't matter what it is that you've been through. I mean, it matters. What I'm saying is, however dark a place you might have been, however difficult a place you might have found yourself in, God sees you, he cares, he remembers. And so go forth this week, do something to support the Jews where you can, stand in solidarity. There'll be posts up on here that you can repost, and just know that the same way that God took care of the Jews for thousands of years and didn't forsake them, even when it seemed like he had, God will never forsake you. So God bless you. I hope you have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next Friday here at israelupdate.org.